Welcome along to the Matchbook Football Podcast. It's a special round of 16 Euro 2024 edition. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by a full team, full panel of Mark O'Haire, Adrian Clarke, and Miguel Delaney live from Germany. So we've a lot to discuss. It's been a pretty decent tournament, but it only really starts on the next 4 days. Quick mention to our YouTube channel. Do hit that like button and subscribe completely for free. Wherever you listen to the podcast, it's the best way to keep up to date with all our content. Insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. Check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange as well for all our Euro 2024 markets, including the outright market, which we'll take a look at now currently. So we've had a bit of shake-up at the moment, given that England, despite the fact they've been pretty brutal, let's be honest, over the last few days, are currently favourites for the Euro 2024. So we'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com, and we'll get to that in a second. If maybe, Mark, you want to give a sort of outline of England in general and maybe your overall take of the tournament so far.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the tournament. There's been a few stinkers in the last week, but there's also been some absolutely outstanding entertainment and sort of last gasp heroics as well. Just we're talking on Thursday, Wednesday night, for example, Georgia creating a little bit of history, being one of the biggest outsiders or the biggest shocks and upsets in European Championship history, qualifying as well in the debut tournament. Fantastic achievement for them. But the match between the Czechs and Turkey was everything I want in football, really. Just drama, cards, frustration, brilliant goals, just brilliant entertainment, really. So I've enjoyed it as a whole. As for England, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of scoffing and sneering towards England being outright favourites for Euro 2024 based on their performances so far, the problems they've encountered. But I think that's understandable. But look, the prices, I think, are absolutely justifiable as well. By all means, if you massively disagree that England don't deserve to be favourites, then you've got to start laying England at the prices, because they are short enough, and they're short enough for a reason. It's quite simple. It's quite straightforward. Just look at the draw. One of England, Slovakia, Austria, Turkey, Netherlands, Romania, Switzerland, or Italy will be in the final. Now, irrespective of what you've seen so far from England, they are the strongest suit from that pool of teams. They may not have shown it just yet, but as we said on the last show, it's kind of irrelevant, really, what's happened before. It's kind of now what happens from here on in. And, I back England to come through that segment. I don't think it's a controversial take, that at all. So, it's all there for England if they want it. But whether we'll see the best of them remains to be seen, really. They've only conceded one goal, and it was a banger from 30 yards. They've given next to nothing away. I know there's sort of very few scraps of positivity around England right now, but they are some. And you look at the other side of the draw, the top half. Only one of Spain, Germany, Portugal, France, or Belgium can reach the final, let alone win it. So, Spain, I think, have been the outstanding side so far based on the caliber of opposition they faced. But they'll have to probably beat Germany and/or France, Portugal just to reach the final. And if you look at the outright market, about 62% of it is taken up by the top half of the draw of Spain, Germany, France, and Portugal. Chuck England in the mix, and that's 83% of your outright book covered. So I think there's potentially to be opportunity elsewhere. So my thinking is just have a swing at someone in the bottom half of the draw at a big price, literally a quid or two, just for a bit of interest. I've obviously already outlined Austria as one of my favourite selections pre-tournament, so I'm not going to go back in on them now that their price has kind of been smashed in from the outset. So I looked at Romania at 170, an enormous price, and I hated this team pre-tournament. I forecasted them to finish bottom of Group B. They won the group. Obviously, they've been helped along the way. They scored a couple of stunners and were helped by Ukraine's dreadful defending in that first game and goalkeeping too. But what I thought was quite interesting is with points on the board from that first match, it just allowed them to play their natural game, which is to protect, preserve, basically pragmatism all over. But they're happy and comfortable in kind of suffer mode. They're well versed in kind of allowing the opposition possession, inviting that pressure on, utilising the counter-attack. And I think their game plan has worked pretty well so far, and I think it's very well suited to knockout football as well. They play the Dutch in the last 16. They're massive outsiders, which we'll come to later in the show, which I think is understandable, but there shouldn't be a huge amount to fear there from a Romanian perspective. And I think if they can squeeze the Dutch out, they might have to go to the distance to do so. You've got the likes of Austria or Turkey in the quarterfinals, and then you're just 2 games away from glory. We could probably trade out before then anyhow. So, they're just a very big price. I don't really rate the Dutch. We'll come to that later. I think the Romanians have the opportunity to bloody their nose a little bit and that 170 price is just enormous, considering their path to potentially the final. So, as I say, already very much happy to be on the Austria position. They've got a possible pathway of playing Turkey, Netherlands, or Romania, and then England to reach the final. But yeah, no need for me to kind of go back in on them. I'm already quite happy with that. So I just thought it might be an opportunity to have a swing at a big price in that bottom side of the draw if you don't fancy England.
Well, good news for you, Mark. Romania are out to 210.0 on the matchbook betting exchange. So
£1 bet's got up to £2
quick. Yeah, get that quid on.
Yeah, let's get the quid or two on. But yeah, do check that out. It'd be interesting if they do. If Mark gets them getting off, maybe have
Can
that
I just
price
ask
before kick off.
Can I just ask what price would it need to come down to for you to get out and make a profit?
If they get past the Netherlands, that price will shrink. I would guess if they're playing Austria or Turkey, 100, maybe you might even get sort of double figures. But no, I'd let it run until you look at the sort of a potential semi-final, and that's when I'd be looking to get out. And the same with Austria, actually. I'm eager to be with Austria until at least the quarters, and then we'll sort of see who they're playing. They might be playing the Dutch if the sort of draw plays out as expected. They've already beaten the Dutch, but, you know, rarely does lightning strike twice in that sort of regard. And I thought they did get a little bit, I wouldn't say lucky or fortunate, but the Dutch played relatively okay. You know, they should be better for the second match around. So, yeah, got to treat it each game. I'm sounding like a manager right now, but each game as it comes, sort of take your view from there.
Yeah, like England currently 5.05, Spain 5.7, Germany 7.2, France 7.6, Portugal 8.6, Netherlands 14.0, Italy 20.0, Adrian. But at the same price is Austria. And in fairness, props to Mark, he tipped them up 67.0 on our outreach preview. But for those looking for a bet now, you can make it a good argument that they're probably as good a bet now at 20.0 because of what we know, or maybe a tad better than they were outright.
Yeah, as it in the same half as England. You know, you look at the draw, and obviously you look at it and say England are the strongest team, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But based on performance levels, Austria are the best team so far at the Euros in that bottom half of the draw, in my opinion. So I think they can get to the final. I said it after the France game. I said that could have been a semi-final. I just thought they were two good teams slugging it out. I think there's quite a high ceiling for this Austria team. I think they're capable of mixing it with anyone in the competition. So yeah, I think if you're looking for a value bet at this stage, I would take 20 on Austria. Out of the favourites, see, France have drifted massively because of the draw, because of performance levels, but they're still not giving much away. They're still, you know, the numbers are still very, very strong in terms of the chances that they're creating. They're just missing too many. They come up against a few good keepers. And yeah, I haven't been impressed by them, but we know what they're capable of. At 7.8, probably on them than England. That is for sure, despite the draw. That's my honest view. For me, Spain are the best team that we've seen. Again, I'd rather back them at 5.7 despite the tough draw than England. But yeah, for me, England, I just would be flabbergasted if they win it with Southgate as the manager. I think it's as straightforward as that. Whether you know the draw or not, the draw is favourable. We know that, but we've had good draws before. Haven't won it. You know, we've had good opportunities before England. Whenever they come up against anyone decent, that's where we flounder. And you know, to win the bet, to win your outright pick, you got to win the final. And England look miles off it to me, but look, I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Yeah, Miguel, that leads beautifully into you. You've been covering England over the last few weeks, and you can lead in then to your outright pick. But yeah, what do you make of them? And I guess what do you make the fact they're favourites? It's just so funny. We've had this for the last three tournaments, the favourable draws that England keep getting.
Well, I mean, I suppose above anything, it's just a reflection of what side of the draw they've landed on. And it's interesting just what Adrian was saying there, because I've done England and I've also done a few other games. I'm talking to people around other camps and people connected to them, like in Italy and Spain in particular. Even though, like, I think both, even Spanish would accept their talent ceiling is nowhere near as close to England's. I mean, a lot of people see England as having the best squad in the tournament, but they actually put it down to, and this very specific words used are the tactical detail of the manager. that, everyone accepts Southgate has been good over the long term and kind of changing his culture, refocusing everything, and maybe utilizing this generation of talent in a broader sense. When it comes to the fine details of big games, and I think this is something that's really been seen in kind of these decisions over the midfield and the attack, a lot of people at other camps think England are found wanting. Now, that said, and I suppose this reflects the price, you can see a situation where England now just grind their way through more forgiving games. Like, you can actually see a series of maybe low-scoring matches that are maybe just decided by one individual quality, because England do have the players to produce it. It won't necessarily come from collective play, but they do have those players that can make something happen. And then suddenly, I suppose, as we said there about Austria, Romania, they mightn't play a first really kind of close to elite side. I don't think there's that many in the tournament until very late. And then suddenly you're in a situation where anything can happen. But of course, again, that dependent on detail. I mean, it could end up similar to Euro 2020 in that way for England. But the flip side of that, of course, is, and this is something that's been really interesting from being around the camp, that this kind of the forgiving side of the draw is matched on the other side by this immense expectation of England that has led to so much criticism of performance. And I would say justifiable criticism, I have to say. But what's really interesting there, Southgate, to us, he keeps going on about a unique environment, a different environment compared to his previous campaigns. And he has been talking about expectation and all the noise around England. And I do wonder, like, I'm actually surprised that Southgate has started to speak about that, because I wonder, after all this, I mean, given what I said there a moment ago about how he's changed the culture of England, I do feel actually there's a danger of kind of the players feeling the weight of it again. And then suddenly a forgiving draw can actually become full of banana skins or full of these kind of really awkward obstacles. Because a game against Slovakia, say, it's not a game that you should think about winning. It's a game where if you lose this, the criticism is going to be immense. And you can see all of these kind of, not 50-50 games, but opposite, like the Slovenia match the other night, where opposition sides really reduce it. And obviously Southgate hasn't figured out his team yet. Now, it is possible maybe there maybe were some suggestions of something better when he brought Palmer and Bowen on at the end of the Slovenia game. But it's why this selection against Slovakia is going to be instructive for basically the fourth game in a row with England. So while you can see the price, there's a lot of kind of competing arguments swirling around their competition. I think they can win it, but that is dependent on how things fall and a lot of luck. Because I don't think they actually match the quality in terms of performance of at least four of their sides in the competition. And there is one, I think, in terms of my outright, there is one very awkward side, a very awkward team on their side of the draw, who I'm surprised are at 40-1, given their performances so far, which is Switzerland. I can see them getting past Italy, and I can see them giving England a very, very difficult game.
Yeah, and Adrian gave them a bit of a mention when they were around 60-70 halfway through the group stage as well. Might go straight back to you, Miguel. If there is a player looking at in the golden boot at the moment, it's Cody Gakpo. Yeah,
and that's actually almost only because I can see that Romania game being quite open and a potential for him to get maybe 2 goals. The top scorer market is quite interesting, I think, in that there's so little that's obvious, especially with Mbappe, say, in a French team that isn't scoring much and it has that kind of minimalist approach from Deschamps. It also feels like it's been a tournament largely dominated by midfielders. In fact, when I was picking my best 11 for the group stage, I came up with about 8 midfielders, and had to almost kind of like work around other positions. And like I put down Gakpo without necessarily much faith in it. I agree with Mark that Romania could very easily beat the Dutch, but that can be a high-scoring game. I think it is 50-50. And if the Dutch get through, you can see a situation where suddenly Gakpo ends up with 4 or 5, and that might be enough to win it.
Yeah, Mark, it is fairly open, as Miguel has alluded to there. It's so open that you're going to plug for another one at a massive price. I mean, this is Mark just showing off here. He's got Austria at 67.0 in the book, so let's throw a couple of 200-1 shots in.
So I personally backed Marcel Sabitzer to be top goal scorer in this competition pre-tournament at 250 to 1. I'm astonished he's still 250 to 1 if you want to back him to be top goal scorer. He's already got 1 goal, which means he's in 2 off the top already. He's playing in a very fluent Austrian side in that softer side of the draw, playing in a much more advanced position for Austria than he would for his club side. And they do have a weakness in forward areas, Austria, at centre forward. Gregoric and Arnautovic are kind of filling that role at the minute. Baumgartner's the obvious danger there behind the main striker, but he picked up a bit of an injury in the group stage. I know he came off the bench in the last game, but Sabitzer has been getting forward a lot. What's really frustrating is coming into this competition, he was on penalty duty, but Arnautovic took it off him in the group stage. So he could easily have 2 goals at this stage, but he could easily regain spot kick duties as well. Arnautovic isn't guaranteed to play 90 every game. But if you look at the underlying metrics, Sabitzer is leading Austria in terms of shots on target, non-penalty expected goals so far. So he's been a very busy boy in forward areas. And this looks like a wide open heat this year. As Miguel was saying, there's no standout candidate towards the top end of the market. And I just think 250 to 1 is it's just far too big for a player who will be there or thereabouts if Austria go deep in this competition. Just 2 or 3 more goals might do it.
Okay, and then maybe one in the top of the market, Adrian and Spain have been very impressive. Tough side of the draw, but doesn't mean they can't score a lot of goals.
Well, it's still 15.0 on Alvaro Morata. He's had 7 shots so far. He scored 1 as well. Spain are creating chances for fun, aren't they? Second most in the competition. I love the wingers. And obviously Morata, he's only played 2 games. He's actually played less. He's only played 163 minutes. So he'll be nice and fresh coming into the Georgia game, as will the 2 wide men, Yamal and Williams. And they've been the stars of the tournament so far. And I think the ammunition that Morata could receive against Georgia, a game that I think could be quite exciting, maybe with some goals in it. I think that he can get on the score sheet there. Then they progress and maybe play Germany. I'd back Spain to beat Germany, I've got to say. And then they're suddenly into the semi-finals where maybe they'll play a France or a Portugal or a Belgium. So, and then you're talking more 50-50. But by that stage, you could have 4 or 5 goals. So, yeah, Morata for me.
Okay, insightsonmatchup.com, full recap of the outright picks and all our game by game. We're going to cover all 8 games with roughly 1 to 2 bets per game. So we're going to try our best to rattle through some of these. We'll take a look at pricing for Switzerland versus Italy. Opening game Saturday, 5 p.m. Switzerland 3.55. Underdogs to Italy, who are 254. The draw very short, 3.0. Both teams to score. No favorite at 178. The Asian handicap line sees Switzerland get a quarter goal head start, and wait for it. The total on Matchbook currently is 1.5, though the overs is 158. So Miguel, it's going to be a low scoring game.
Yeah, I don't see any. And I put that primarily down to Switzerland and how they approach these games. Although this is a better Swedish side with more invention, say, than 2006, around that era of Swiss football. I remember one of the worst tournament games of all time in Germany, Switzerland against Ukraine. But I think they can lock it down. And also, while before the tournament, I would have expected Spalletti's Italy to be more expansive, it does feel like the Spain game gave them a bit of a shock. I've been surprised the extent of the pragmatism from Spalletti since. And I think given a knockout, that sometimes can see high-scoring tournaments suddenly locked down and that's especially been the case in the Euros. I think this could go the distance and be a 0-0 or even a 1-0 extra time. So I'm going for under 1.5.
Okay, under 1.5 to 64 currently on Matchbook. Mark, if you're going to pick a side, I guess your agreement with Miguel probably that Switzerland are a tad too big, I guess, or maybe underrated a bit, because I've been quite impressed with them over the 3 games.
Yeah, I've sort of nodding along in agreement there with everything Miguel was saying. Really, I can't see this match escalating into a shootout. I think the draw is fairly priced at the minute. It's the second of the 3 sort of match outcomes in terms of it's normally the outsider. It's not here, but Switzerland are the outsiders at 3.5, and that just looks a bit too big for me. And so to be able to oppose Italy by getting the draw and Switzerland on side by backing the quarter goal start for the Swiss stands out. I was fascinated to see how Italy would approach this game, or I am fascinated, because Spalletti isn't really a 3-5-2 man. He trialled it in the March friendlies more through pressure than sort of his own sort of want, really, or need. And But if you look at the squad makeup of Italy, I think the Italians wanted that to be the formation of choice, because there's a system in place for a hugely successful Inter side. You've got 3 Inter defenders in the squad, as well as Barella, a really key man in that midfield. So I expect them to be 3-5-2 in this competition. They went forward at the back in the first 2 games, and as Miguel said, they got absolutely spanked against Spain, and perhaps as a reaction to that, but also the awareness of the permutations of Croatia, knowing that just a point would see them through. They did switch back to the 3-5-2, but I thought they looked much better against Croatia. They came under pressure, but I thought they did plenty well in possession too. So if they stick with the 3-5-2, they've got a decent shot of progressing. If they go back to the back 4, I think they are vulnerable here, because the Swiss are adaptable. The Swiss are very capable. Their head coach was under huge pressure back in November. They took, rather than sacking, they brought in a new assistant coach, and the 2 of them seem to be working pretty well together. There's a sort of versatility about Switzerland right now. They're coming up with fresh ideas, new systems. They're reacting to game state pretty well. And crucially, I think, where Italy has kind of failed so far, Switzerland have really come to the fore in terms of the players who've had great club seasons have brought that club form to the Euros with them. You think of Sommer, Akanji, Xhaka, Freuler, Ndoye, Arbisher, just a few of them there. They've all had sort of great seasons, and they've been playing pretty well so far. And I thought they performed very well for the most part against Hungary. The Scotland game was okay. There was always going to be a reaction from Scotland, I guess. But they caused Germany plenty of problems in that last game. And if there is an exceptional weakness about the Swiss side, it is in centre forward. But I think they've got the pace and physicality to cause Italy problems. And whereas I haven't really changed my view on Italy pre-tournament, they still look like a team in transition. They're going to be missing Calafiori here as well, which is a big blow, disrupts that defence. They have their own issues up front as well. So I think it's also worth noting, sort of probably one for Miguel here in terms of his low goal tally. The temperatures around Berlin on Saturday are going to be around 28 to 30 degrees come kickoff, and that will lower the pace of the game as well, decrease the goal expectancy, increase the likelihood of the draw. So I thought the opportunity to have Switzerland on side with a quarter goal start appeals to me, and I couldn't put anyone off back in the draw and under 2.5 goals at 3.55 either.
Okay, I had a bit of success in match day 3 with that bet drawn under 2.5 goals, but Switzerland plus a quarter for Mark, under 1.5 goals for Miguel. We'll move on to Germany versus Denmark. Go to Adrian first. After a quick look at the betting, Germany 165 favorites, pretty solid favorites. Denmark 6.6, draw is 4.0. On the both teams to score market, it's no is the favorite at 184. The Asian handicap, Denmark at a 1 goal head start. The goal line is a normal 2.5. Unders 184, and that's where you're going siding with for a bet, Adrian.
Yeah, I like the unders here. Maybe it's going to be a pattern, I don't know, across a lot of these knockout ties. I think, well, these are 2 of the teams with the best defensive records at the Euros. Denmark, I've been impressed with without the ball. I think they've been excellent against England. They did a very, very good job of disrupting them. But yeah, across the piece, I think they've looked pretty good out of possession, lacked a little bit of threat on the ball, which might make it a difficult task to go through eventually. But I think they can make this really, really competitive, Denmark. They've only faced 7 shots on target. That's the joint best in the competition so far, alongside Portugal. So they're protected. Kasper Schmeichel pretty good. Germany have only faced 8 on target, by the way, so not too far against. The XG is very low against Germany. 0.8 across the 2 games. Denmark's is 2.25, but still not too bad. Germany haven't faced very many shots at all. I think the fewest in the competition. So both teams have done a good job, I think, of protecting their goalkeeper. Germany laboured a bit, I thought, against the Swiss. They created, like, you look at the stats, loads of chances, but how many good ones? Not that many. I didn't think they created that many clear-cut opportunities. It was half chances, really. So yeah, I think they can win the game, Germany, but I'm not entirely confident that they'll be able to do it inside 90 minutes. So I'm going to steer clear of that. If you do think they'll win to nil is a good shout at 2.62. But I'm just going to go with unders. I also think that, funnily enough, Jonathan Tah's suspension might be a boost. Schlotterbeck comes in, I think, and maybe might improve. Now, I'm not that sold on Jonathan Tah.
Rudiger's a big doubt as well.
Is Rudiger a doubt? Okay, so yeah, okay. So they might look to protect that area, and they might be less forward-minded. If their first choice centre halves are both missing for the game. So let's see. But I think it's going to be tight, under 2.5.
Okay, and you're under similar lines, Miguel. I guess listen to people who are over in Germany. The talk is, I guess, the only real team selection. I know Adrian mentioned the centre backs, but it's the striker position, isn't it? And maybe Volkirk might be suited to different games versus Havertz.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, there has been a big heave in Germany to get Füllkrug in, including these kind of national polls with over 100,000 people voting. So the momentum there. But for me, the decisive factor in this game is that I think Denmark are a good side on the ball, as we saw against England. They struggle to score, as we've now seen 2 tournaments in a row. And if this was, I think, and I know they finished second in the group, but if this was a 2-team, one of those more symmetrical tournaments where only 2 teams go through, I think they could have struggled again, as they did in Qatar, because it just would have changed the dynamic of the group. As it was, that like where 4 third-place teams go through, it does kind of change the kind of nature of these games. So it's like they're a good side without cutting edge. But in a match like this, I think their primary quality of how they use the ball and that structure midfield, they won't be able to match the Germans in that sense. So I think Denmark will be forced into a more withdrawn game. And I think this could be one of those where it could be a long match for Germany. Funny enough, I think actually like one of the like their match against Poland in the 2006 World Cup, but one they eventually get through. And I'd be thinking actually 1-0 or 2-0 Germany, but I'm going to go both teams to score no.
Okay, pretty much the same price. Both teams to score no for Miguel, or under 2.5 for Adrian's third game, England versus Slovakia. We might go to Adrian because he's got a very interesting selection here. England 144, Slovakia 11.0. The draw is 4.5. Both teams to score no, 158. Very favoured in that market. Slovakia getting a 1.25 goal head start. We'll get back to that in a second. 2.5 is the total. So yeah, Adrian, I'll throw this back at you. We've been hitting the bar with England, sort of going about it the right way. England both teams to score no, England under 3.5 goals, all that jazz. So you're just keeping it pretty simple this time, I think.
Yeah, look, it's the story of the tournament. I think we've hit the post a lot of times with our selections, not got as many winners as maybe the sort of analysis has deserved. But anyway, we go again in the last 16. Look, I'm gonna go with Slovakia here, plus 1.25 goals, on the basis that I think it's another low-scoring game. England have the lowest XG of the last 16, just 2.19. Slovakia are the next lowest on 2.4. So, neither team has been fashioning too many great chances. And I looked at the quality of the shot as well, and it's very, very low. So XG, expected goals per shot, is a good indication of the quality of the chances. And Slovakia have the lowest quality, and England have the second lowest. So creating clear cuts opportunities is a problem for both teams. So I think it'd be low scoring. And that would play in, of course, to this bet, because the bottom line is for us to lose money, England have to win by 2 clear goals. And based on what I've seen so far, that's going to might be problematic, because they haven't played at all well. Slovakia, I think, can knock the ball around. They can keep the ball for decent lengths of times. I think Lobotka's been really, really good for them in central midfield. They did beat Belgium, remember, by 1-0. They only lost by 1 goal to Portugal in the qualifiers for this competition. And this is the killer stat, really. Slovakia have lost by 2 goals once in the last 26 games. So they're not used to getting spanked. And this is a team that are competitive every time they go out there. I have to say the caveat is that I haven't played that many top nations across the last 26 games. Whenever they have, they've been there or thereabouts. They've kept things tight. So, the only game where they did lose by 2 was against Austria in a friendly in March. So look, this is a team I think that can give England a tough ride. Can be really stubborn, and I just think that it could be one that goes to extra time. If England can't see off Slovenia, I think they might struggle to see off Slovakia. So let's see. Let's see if the performance is better. But I think it's at this point, based on what I've seen of both teams, I think it's unlikely England win this game by 2 goals.
Yeah, Miguel, you're under similar lines, attacking it from a different angle. But look, if we get to halftime and it's 0-0, I mean, Twitter, let alone everyone else, is going to be a meltdown, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with Adrian there. I think this is going to be a frustrating night for England. Now, the caveat being, if Southgate comes up with some new formation that offers more balance and actually starts to unlock players, that might be the kind of
Southgate's trying his best to mute you there, Miguel.
But yeah, unless Southgate comes up with some sort of formation that starts to unlock players, which, given the way that the trend of the tournament so far and how persistent he seems with what he's got, I think will be surprising. And I can see another long night for England where Slovakia dig in. And yeah, it's one of those where you look at the game, you assess what's coming, and you kind of see one of these images, and I can see England fans booing a 0-0 at half time. So for that, yeah, under 0.5, especially given the price.
Good price, yeah.
Yeah. Mark, quick one line from you on the guys' picks.
Yeah, I made notes of sort of my proposed or my favourite plays in each game before the show. Slovakia plus 1.25 would have been mine from the England game. Wow. Compare and contrast the two teams. I just think Slovakia, there's much more consistency about their play, about their setup. You know, the midfield, Lobotka, Duda, and Kuka. They're going to be going around kicking people, breaking up play. They're decent in possession. Skriniar's a world-class defender at the back. You know, they're set up to be pretty strong and consistent defensively. I saw one of those games against Portugal in the qualifiers, and they were, dominated, but they were pretty resistant as well. And I think they are capable. You look at England. I think Miguel made a point pre-tournament, actually, a very good point. But going into previous tournaments, you kind of had a consistency about England with the team selection. You knew what to expect from them. But I went back after that show to look at the England team who played in the Euros final against Italy. It's a shadow of the side. 3 years later, that's playing in the Euros this time around. And starting with Trent in midfield and Southgate admitting it's basically an experiment. And then obviously you're using him in midfield because you want his ball playing ability, and then to replace him with Conor Gallagher. Just to me, there's not a lot of joined up thinking with England right now, whereas Slovakia there definitely is. So I think they'll pose a danger, but can't imagine it being a high scoring classic.
Yeah, he's made a bit of a mess of it. But look, as you guys are sort of alluding to there, could stumble upon a team and maybe reach another final. We'll move on to Spain versus Georgia. Take a look at the betting. Spain, very impressive throughout the tournament, 123. Georgia, 19.0, not given a chance here. Draw 7.4. Both teams have scored no, 156, with Georgia getting a 1 3/4 goal head start, and 2.5 is the total. Miguel, I know you've been to the Spain games. You've been very impressed with them. I guess you fancy them to take care of business here.
Yeah, and I was at Georgia last night, which I have to say was the best event I've been to in the tournament so far.
Oh, wow.
Granted, it was against the Portugal second string, much like Spain against Albania in that regard, but it was in keeping with their match against Turkey, and just the life of it, the way they play, the attackers. I do think ultimately that will run out, and we saw, I suppose, some of the vulnerabilities in Georgia in that Turkey game. I think Spain are capable of shredding them. Spain are obviously in a real mood in this tournament. There is some danger to this, but again, it just jumped out at me. I think this could be potentially a 4-1, 3-2, Spain winning in a high-scoring game. The one caveat I would say is, so far, obviously, Spain haven't conceded a goal. And that is in a group with, that was a dangerous group. That shouldn't be overlooked, despite kind of perceptions of maybe Croatia, Italy against what they used to be. But I'm interested, given the way Georgia play, I think it's going to be interesting whether that is tested. Because, traditionally that Spanish approach has had a bit of a glass jaw, and suddenly there's a high line, a lot of possession, and then suddenly a break can undo them. We even saw that in the 2010 World Cup final where Casillas had to stop Robben twice. Spain haven't really been tested in that way yet. I think the two wingers also give them an outlet that means the kind of whole shape doesn't need to be quite as high. But it's going to be interesting if Georgia do exploit that. And I think that's where they can potentially get goals and Spain's perfect defensive record can be breached. I do think Spain will have enough. And there is potential for goals either way, either potentially a big Spain win, given, let's not forget, they thrashed Georgia in qualifying for this very competition, or maybe kind of a back and forth game. But I think Spain will ultimately have too much quality. So yeah, Spain over 2.5.
Okay, and Adrian, you're going a bit more aggressive, picking up a lot of what Miguel is saying. I take it with Spain and both teams to score.
Yeah, this makes a change, doesn't it? More aggressive
Yeah,
than Miguel. I mean, when has
Miguel's
that ever happened?
cautious. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Miguel's all about aggression on this show. I love it. Look, the price for Spain to win and both teams to score no is 1.78. The price for Spain to win and both teams to score is 3.7. It's massive. And Georgia, for me, can score. I think that they're really, really dangerous on the break. We saw that in the game against Portugal. They scored 2 goals in that game. Okay, they defended for a lot of the match, but whenever they have broken forward in this tournament, they've always carried a threat. They'll run and run and run. They'll keep pushing for goals, won't they? They've scored in every game until this point, Georgia as well. And as brilliant as Spain have been, I'm still not completely sold that they have a sensational back four. So I think they get attable. And for that reason, I just think because of the price, both teams to score and Spain to win is a player. 3-1 and 7-1 in the qualifiers. So they got on the score sheet in both those games. Georgia against Spain en route to the competition. And I just think Spain should win this game. It might, for Georgia, Portugal might have been their moment, and then it's like, right, now it's a step too far. And remember, Spain rested pretty much everybody for the last group game, so they'll come back nice and refreshed. I think they're going to tear into Georgia, and it could be a really, really good game.
Okay, France versus Belgium, Monday 5 p.m. This is a cracking game. So they're the 4 weekend games. These are the 4 treats, if you like. France 198 favorites, Belgium 5.1, draw 3.3. Both teams to score no, favorite at 181. The Asian handicap line sees Belgium get a half goal head start. 2.5 is the total. Adrian, I'll throw it straight back at you. You're keeping it pretty simple here. You've liked France, and despite maybe not being as impressive as some people would like, at least on the eye, you still think they're quite solid here.
Yeah, it's a hard game to call, isn't it? Because 2 heavyweights going locking horns. Look, France are struggling, aren't they, in terms of scoring goals? That is a problem. But in this game, maybe up against the Belgian side that will surely come out at some point and try and utilise the qualities of Doku, of Kevin De Bruyne, of Lukaku. All of their top players are at the front end of the pitch, aren't they? There's no point Belgium sitting back for the entire 90 minutes here and getting De Bruyne back on the edge of his own box. I think that they have to come out and go for it at some point here, and that might suit France just with a little bit of space to run into. I don't think they got the best fullbacks in the competition. Belgium, Castagna better going forward than he is at the back. The left back's not bad, in fairness. Then you look at the centre backs for Tongan, old, Fash, a little bit iffy for me. So I just think that France will create good opportunities here. Dembele's been hit or miss, but he still created a lot. And Mbappe had 6 shots, 5 on target against Poland. They just keep coming up against good goalies, or they keep squandering good chances. France, the numbers are massively strong, in terms of their attacking threat. And then, of course, at the other end of the pitch, France aren't giving anything away. A little bit like England, they're not giving up very many chances. They've been a bit stodgy in possession, but they've got the quality. And there's the concern with Belgium as well, that a little bit like England, the rapport with the supporters seems to have been a little bit questionable, really. Booing Kevin De Bruyne, booing the team. There's a little bit of a fallout there. Lukaku's been a bit luckless, as he often is. So I just feel that in a tight game, close fought games, there's 2 good teams. France are better. And I think this might be the kind of game that suits them. And it maybe just, I said this about the Poland game, so forgive me, but sooner or later it has to click for France, doesn't it? 1.97 on France to win.
How is Romelu Lukaku still on 0 goals? My thoughts with all those who backed him for the Golden Boot or top goal scorer. Miguel, a couple of people in the comments saying it's going to be a cagey game, and that's what you're expecting.
Yeah. Just again, I've been to 2 France matches, and I've seen an own goal. No, it's good. It is a little bit weird with France, and again, like just in kind of some of the research, talking to people like who around their camp, they actually feel they've been creating a lot of chances, and that there isn't necessarily much wrong with the attack. It's just kind of almost been a confluence of events, bad luck, obviously the Mbappe situation, Now, of course, that bad luck might really become consequential because they're on the much more difficult side of the draw. I mean, I suppose, had they not had that penalty against Poland, what price would France be now to win outright? Because they're just beyond the England side of the draw now. And you could see them basically just kind of working their way through. Whereas now, even if Deschamps goes to that classic approach, it's going to get more and more difficult. And they're against teams, or they could potentially play teams that are kind of polar opposite in the kind of tactical ideology. If it is to be, say, Germany and Spain that they end up meeting, or Germany or Spain, sorry. And again, it also comes down to how these things can kind of, these events can influence the tournament. They're kind of quite self-contained in that way, regardless of your overall quality. So I'm just expecting a similar sort of game. And again, with that also influenced by the knockouts. Belgium actually been quite a free-playing side. They've been unlucky themselves with some of the decisions, particularly poor Romelu Lukaku. But I can see this easily being a 1-0. I'd say a 1-0 France. I probably got a bit too much maybe against a Belgian side that are a bit kind of more disparate in terms of talent and the age profile of the team. And again, you just look at the price for that, under 1.5.
Yeah, 3.05. Mark, interest on your thoughts here, because Belgium are a tough team to maybe get right and when they're going to deliver that performance, I guess.
Yeah, I've sort of reserved judgment on Belgium in this competition, but I was quite unimpressed and underwhelmed by what they produced against Ukraine on match day 3. When you consider sort of winning the group was there on the line if they wanted it, they didn't really show a huge amount of urgency or interest to kind of go for the jugular and get the results. Obviously fearful that they might end up on the wrong side of a defeat maybe, but just disappointed really. Whereas France, you can't put them in the same bracket as England in terms of disappointment in terms of performance levels so far, because they've only scored a penalty and an own goal, but they have been better than what England have produced, and we saw that against Austria going toe-to-toe. They were the better side, showed sort of real physicality in that game, which I was quite impressed with. And then the Dutch game was a nothing match really, but the two big moments outside of the controversial VAR call were Griezmann and Rabiot, and they should easily have scored at least one of those two chances. So and then the Poland game, they played pretty well for an hour, and then just sort of top and tailed it with sort of a sloppy start and finish. But ultimately France are the better team. And if you look at the underlying metrics so far at Euro 2024, it might surprise people, but France top the charts in terms of expected points and expected goals ratio if you strip out penalties as well, which kind of goes to show that they are heading in the right direction. They are still creating chances. And as Adrian says, it probably will click at some point. But let's not forget that under Deschamps, they don't tend to be the most extravagant of sides, especially in knockout stage matches either. So we kind of concur with what the guys are saying. France win in a low-scoring match.
Okay, we'll move on to Portugal versus Slovenia Monday, 8 p.m. It's Portugal 143 favourite, Slovenia 9.8. The draw is 4.8. Both teams to score no. Favourite at 165. Slovenia get 1.25 goal head start. 2.5 is the total. So, Adrian, over to you here. Portugal were, I think everyone had them in some sort of outright pick, and it was largely going okay until maybe they messed up a bit against Georgia, albeit with a changed team. What are you expecting in this game?
Yeah, look, I think that is a factor. It really is. They changed, almost everybody. The defence certainly wasn't as secure as the A team. So I wouldn't read that much into it. I do think that Portugal are a side that maybe are better suited to an end-to-end game, to play against a team that will come at them in some degree, which is why they beat Turkey. Turkey left a little bit of space for them to surge into, and they win 3-0. In the other two games where they've really monopolised possession against relatively low blocks, they've kind of laboured a little bit to break them down, and that's the fear here, I guess, against Slovenia, who proved against England they're capable of doing that. Really impressed by Biol at the back during the competition. I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals. You can get it at 1.84, which I think is a fair price in the knockouts of the Euros that is increasingly looking like it's going to be full of tight, cagey-ish matches. I do think this is going to be attack versus defence largely. Slovenia have a little bit about them when they want to get forward, and Šeško is a quality player at the top end of the pitch. But how often are they going to get the ball to him? That's the concern. There is previous, and that's why I've steered away from Portugal here. I think they'll probably win, but I'm not going to back them because Slovenia beat Portugal in a friendly in March. And in that friendly, Portugal had, I think, 2/3 of possession, 65, 66%, and ended up losing the game. And, that is the fear here, that Slovenia can shut them out. 5 of the last 6 Slovenia games have gone under 2.5. And that's the way I see this one heading. I think Portugal will have the ball, they'll probe, they might nick a goal here or there, but I don't see it escalating at all. So that's my selection. Also, there's an issue with Ronaldo. Really, I know he's one of the goats. Of course, we know that, we accept it. But him playing in that third group game was a bit of a
Made
joke,
no
really.
sense. Yeah,
I mean, what's that about?
We know what that's about.
Is Roberto Martinez saying, "What do you think, Cristiano? Do you want to play?" Yeah, I want to play. Don't ask him. Leave him out. That was a ridiculous decision because I think it would have helped the team actually to have played Jota up front or Ramos. I couldn't get my head around that. And his movement is fairly non-existent these days, and that is a problem against low blocks. So I think his selection for the game actually hinders their chances of winning it maybe in normal time. I think they'll go through, but my pick here is under 2.5 goals.
Okay, yeah, Mark, quick line from you. This game's going to be in Frankfurt, which people might have seen yesterday. Has been the pitch has been a big issue.
Yeah, it was the venue when England played Denmark as well, and we saw sort of lumps of the pitch being cut up many times. And I think that can also contribute to a low-scoring game in particular. I sort of again would agree with what Adrian's suggesting here in terms of being an unders match. I also sort of considered having Slovenia on side of a decent handicap start. I think all the underdogs actually in the last 16 have been handed pretty kind handicap starts here. And what I've been impressed with Slovenia, it's the kind of cliche that's been brought up many times by many different teams in this competition, but there is a kind of club-like approach to their play, a very sort of straight and central 4-4-2, but they are difficult to penetrate and they can be competitive. So I don't expect this to be easy for Portugal whatsoever, but ultimately the class that they have at their disposal, it would be a huge upset if they weren't able to progress.
Yeah, Miguel, that's probably where you're coming from here with your selection.
Yeah, completely. It's again, actually, it's funny with these last 16 games where basically, and I think this is again a product of the 24-team tournament, which has a lot of positives, but I think it's ultimately outweighed by the effect in the tournament as a whole. The 16 team is cleaner and produces more quality. And I think there's about half of these last 16 games where you can see the bigger side just putting paid to, or sorry, maybe the side with more resources or more talent, putting paid to a side that have had their moment by getting through and winning narrowly in a difficult game. And I think this is a classic of that. And you can see Portugal 1-0, 2-0 again. So I'm going Portugal on both teams to score no. Okay,
yeah, let's move on. Romania versus Netherlands. We're at Tuesday now, 5 p.m. kickoff. Romania 8.4 underdogs. We'll get to that in a second. Netherlands 146, draw 4.7. Both teams to score now 168. Romania get a 1.25 goal head start. 2.5 is the total, Mark. But I guess if you like Romania on the outrights, you got to fancy them in this game. That's how it works. That's how it works.
I have to hold my hands up. I might have got Romania a little bit wrong. Pre-tournament, I backed them to finish bottom of the group. I backed them to score under 3.5 goals. I backed them to lose their opener against Ukraine. All three were basically lost or close to losing after the first match. They did take advantage of some poor goalkeeping, but what I saw was a team showing plenty of intent, tenacity, organisation, and a real hunger, really, that kind of caught my eye. And yeah, they scored a couple of worldies and had a little element of fortune in that regard, but they've kind of carried on those characteristics into match day 2 and match day 3. And as I said earlier in the show, I think there's an advantage to how they play in terms of knockout football. They will be happy to give you possession. They will be happy to invite pressure on. They're quite used to suffering. We saw that through qualifying. Switzerland found out to their cost, actually, that you can't sleep on this Romanian side, but they do have plenty of ability in the counter-attack when it ball is turned over, and they also have the element of surprise and spectacular too, which we've seen in this competition. And that they've defied the data over the last 2 years, and in knockout football you only need to do that once or twice to find yourself in a semi-final. And I think they'll really relish this matchup because I've kind of lost a bit of faith in the Netherlands. I was sceptical about them before the competition, kind of critical of Koeman actually, but even more so after what I've seen so far in this competition, because at the moment he's people pleasing by playing the 4-3-3, trying to keep the total football dream alive when his squad just isn't suited to it at the minute, especially after the injuries they suffered in key central midfield areas pre-tournament. Their strengths are clearly the flair players up top and the stack of outstanding centre halves they've got, the wing back options as well, just top quality players, all suited to play a 3-5-2. He went pragmatic against Austria, playing for the points, so he fielded none of Dumfries, Frimpong or Maatsen, arguably three of the best wing backs in the whole competition, let alone the Netherlands. And I think the midfield, yet again, just looked especially weak. Physically, they were imposed upon, and tactically, they looked a little bit clueless. So I think they looked disconnected and directionless at times too. And bar a first half flourish against Poland, where they were pretty wasteful, I think they've underwhelmed. The French game, as I said, was pretty dire, but the two key moments were on the French side of things. They really should have scored in that game. And then against Austria, they just looked hapless defensively yet again. And, whilst they clearly have the obvious individual talent here to win this game and win this game comfortably, as the market suggests, I definitely don't think it's going to be an easy ride for the Dutch at the minute. So I'm going to back Romania +1.25, which requires the Netherlands to win this game by 2 goals or more for us not to make money. So they might well win, and they might well win in 90 minutes, but I don't expect it to be easy.
Okay, yeah, Miguel, interested to get your take on the Netherlands. Probably haven't heard it yet. Of course, sort of agree where Mark's coming from in terms of Ronald Koeman there.
Yeah, I do. I've never really rated Koeman as a coach that much, I have to say. I mean, he has been effective in certain jobs, but any time there's been any sort of expectation, he's generally floundered. Sometimes feels he's a little bit out of step in that regard. He's certainly ideologically very different to what you'd associate with the Netherlands. And I suppose Austria in that group almost became what you think the Dutch should be in that regard, or what traditional images of the Dutch. But as for this, yeah, again, I think they're given how many goals, especially goals from distance, Romania have scored, how they go for it with overlapping fullbacks, and how open the Dutch have looked, particularly in that game against Austria that Mark mentioned. I think there's a potential for goals. I'm not sure Romania quite good enough. Again, it comes down to one of those things about kind of maybe a more limited side with a better collective against a team that hasn't got quite the coherence, but does have better individuals, which the Dutch do have. So I wouldn't kind of be completely confident in calling any results, but I think there's a potential for goals in this game. So I'm going to go for a surprisingly high priced again, both teams to score.
Yeah, 232 if you can attack those lines that are less than the usual Premier League, Champions League games. Final game, Tuesday, 8 p.m. This is arguably the most exciting one, I have to say, and the one I'm looking forward to the most personally. Austria versus Turkey. Austria odds on 197, Turkey 4.9. The draw is 345. We move on to both teams' score market. Yes, is favoured in that market. Thank God for that. 182. The Asian handicap line sees Turkey get a half goal head start. The total is currently set at 2.5, and unders is only the slight favourite, Adrian. So this is going to be a cracking game.
I think so. Yeah, look, Turkey are a little bit wild, aren't they?
That game last night was superb, I have to say. Brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't. I was kind of mainly focused on the Portugal game myself, but I've seen the highlights and whatnot, and it looked a bit crazy. It was a little bit like that with the Georgia game. They are even the Portugal game. They had their moments. They were a good watch. Turkey, you can't take your eyes off them, and you can almost say the same about Austria, but they've still got a little bit more about them, I think, as a collective. They give up a lot of chances, Austria. So Turkey will have their moments here. But Austria have built up lovely momentum, haven't they? 3 goals scored in each of their last 2 games. Went toe-to-toe with France the game before. Should really have been one apiece with that 1v1 that was squandered. So, yeah, I think Austria are the stronger outfit and should progress. But I think that both teams can maybe contribute to the goals tally. Baumgartner and Lima, obviously Baumgartner had a little bit of a knock, which is why he was on the bench. Not sure what happened with Lima, but they both came off the bench against the Netherlands. Maybe they'll start here a little bit fresher. But it shows they've got a little bit of depth, doesn't it? It is just that centre forward position that's a problem that Mark was talking about earlier. Gregoric or Arnautovic, but the attacking midfielders do get forward and get into the box. And that's how I see them hurting Turkey in this game. price is lovely here, in my opinion. 2.26 on Austria to win and over 1.5 goals. I can't see this being a 1-0. I just can't. And I do fancy Austria heavily to progress. So, yeah, for me, that's one of the best prices around.
Okay, yeah, and just one more goal for you, Miguel.
Yeah, again, exactly what the lads have said. Austria as well. Well, I mean, I was at Turkey against Portugal, and the one thing that did strike at that game was it feels like actually the most maybe chaotic and least structured side of the tournament. The only way they seem to be attacking was basically wide players barreling forward. Now, it created excitement, but wasn't necessarily the most constructive. I do think Austria will pick them off while potentially maybe being susceptible to that odd attack. So I'm going for Austria and over 2.5.
Okay, and Mark, sometimes you've got Austria in the outright market, so it's important to give listeners the context to your selection here. You don't want to be like completely all in on Austria, maybe trying to get something back just in case this is a goal fest, but Austria don't quite get it done in 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. And no need to sort of put all your eggs in Austria basket, and they're odds on to win this game in 90 minutes. And I think that's, it's not. I'm not desperate to get involved at that. If I was, I'd be following Adrian in on the over 1.5 goals, which was on my shortlist. But I thought there's no need to really. I do expect goals in this game. I think it can be quite frantic and frenetic, and yeah, I've got all the, just on Austria, everyone's sort of raving about their ability outside of possession, the pressing stats, the tactical fouling, the general nightmare they are to play against. But I don't think they're getting enough credit for the work they do with the ball, because they do put together some really nice, intricate passing. They are electric in the counter-attack and transitions too. And, all round, you can see it's just a brilliantly well-coached team. And as Miguel said, they're the complete opposite of Turkey, who just look like a chaotic mess at times. Turkey's chances have been hit by the suspension to Çalhanoğlu now as well, which is an enormous blow for them. But I still think they still possess that individual quality in forward areas where they are given a sniff, they are capable of producing something magical. But yeah, ultimately, that's a team that's lacking discipline tactically and psychologically. And I think it's probably worth mentioning too, these two teams played each other in a friendly back in March, and Austria beat them 6-1. So that's undoubtedly going to be playing on the mindset of both teams coming into this. But yeah, just on Turkey, since Montella arrived, they've kept one clean sheet in 9 now. Defensively, they just don't look at the races whatsoever. There's another suspension at centre half as well. But yeah, I like the number of the over here, over 2.5 goals. To me, it's the most obvious over 2.5 goals bet outside of Spain, Georgia. It's landed of 8 of Turkey's last 12. And if you look at the XG numbers, or strip out the penalties from XG, Austria's games have averaged 3.28. Those Turkeys have 3.28 and Austria's are 2.88. So both teams are involved in pretty frantic matches so far. Austria obviously covered the line on their own against Poland and Netherlands. They've only failed to score once in 20, which is against France. But they've also conceded in each of the last 6 games, and 4 clean sheets in 13. Azerbaijan, Estonia and Slovakia account for 3 of those. And yeah, one stat I found quite surprising, actually. If you look at expected goals against, strip out penalties again, Austria are only, at the top is Albania, second is Georgia, third are Austria, which is quite surprising, actually, in the whole competition, and Turkey are 4th. So both of these two teams are playing hard and loose football right now. I think it's got all the ingredients to be one of the best games in the knockout stage altogether. I'll be looking at goals, cards and corners and combining them all if we can. But that build is not open just yet. So goals for me.
We saved the best for last. Let's move on to best round of 16 long shot. Miguel, your correct score here for Germany.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a few, and I found it quite difficult to pick a best bet because there's a few scorelines that really jump out for me.
Give us the short list.
Yeah, I mean, actually, they're all Portugal, Slovenia. I think 1-2-0. England 1-0 eventually. France 1-0 eventually. I think there'll be a lot of that. Similar with Germany. I'd go for them. They finally crack Denmark after about 60 minutes. And then as Denmark are desperately chasing a goal in the last 5, Germany break away and score again. So I'm going Germany 2, Denmark 0.
Yeah, correct score. If you are looking for correct score, they are the best price to match up by far. So fun one single, particularly because there's not that many in the round of 16 correct scores. You would think a lot more closer. And well, we're checking out. Mark, Romania for you.
Yeah, just a very big price. The Czech Republic beat the Netherlands at Euro 2020 at this stage. What was it, 3 years ago? They were a big price that day. And I haven't seen progression, albeit under a different coach with the Netherlands right now. I think they are vulnerable. I think they are fragile in certain areas. And I think the Romanians will kick them, make life uncomfortable, hassle, parry, be in their face, upset their rhythm. And all it takes is a stand-you worldie from 25 yards and they might find themselves in the quarterfinals. So Romania at 8.2.
Yeah, it seems a big price. Adrian, your long shot leads into your best bet. This long shot's been backed already from 8.0 this morning to 7.6. And when I first saw it, I thought it was too big a price.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know it'd been trimmed in because I only looked at the price just before we came on air. So there's obviously a bit of money coming for it. Miguel referenced the possibility of this scoreline earlier on in the show as well. It's Switzerland 0, Italy 0. I kept my powder dry, not talking about the game earlier on. But yeah, I just think this has 0-0 written all over it. In my opinion, Italy very light up front. They're not an especially creative team, are they? Their best moments are absolutely coming from set pieces in the competition so far. They've had the third fewest shots, actually, Italy, in the tournament. Switzerland haven't had that many more either. They've had one more shot than England have, and we know they haven't had that many. So, they met in World Cup qualifying not that long ago. I think in 2021, there was a 0-0 in there and a 1-1. 3 of their last 8 meetings have also ended goalless between these two sides. I think the Swiss attack, a little bit inexperienced against, half decent Italian defence. It's a shame that Calafieri's missing, but I'm sure they've got a decent backup in there. I think this is low risk football. This could go the distance. This could go to extra time. It could go to penalties. Switzerland 0, Italy 0 at 7.6.
Yeah, and like compare that to like Austria, Turkey. I had a quick look, 11.5 the 0-0. That the 7.6 seems better, way better bet. Best bets, Adrian. Back to you.
Very much the same theme. I don't really need to expand, but I'm going to go with Switzerland against Italy again, under 2.5 goals. I've just explained why I believe that 0-0 is an absolute runner here. Well, under 2.5 goals, if you pair it with both teams to score no, it still comes out at 1.98. So you've got the 0-0, you've got the 1-0 either way, you've got the 1-1. Not the 1-1, you've got the 1-0 either way, or you've got the 2-0 either way, haven't you, as well? So a lot of the most likely scores in that individual correct score betting market are onside when you use the bet builder. So I'm going to go under 2.5 goals, both teams to score no. It's just the wrong side of evens, but I think it's highly likely. I do.
Yeah, everything bar the 1-1 really covered there. Miguel, your selection, you gave this a good mention, under 1.5 goals, France, Belgium. So another classic.
Just given France's game so far, and I think that they will be, given the better team with the kind of more defined approach, I think they will be the team that dictate how this game is played, which means it's going to be low scoring and tight. And I'm surprised that it's as high as 3.0. And again, with that influence by the knockout stages, and particularly France in the knockout stages. I'm going under France, Belgium under 1.5.
Okay, Mark, and we've covered this. The game that might book the trends of what we're predicting for most of the round of 16s is that final game at 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah, expecting this to be chaos. Austria's high press, they'll be in your face. They'll be making tackles and fouls to break up the Turkish play, but they do give up chances, as we've seen so far in this competition. So I wouldn't put it past Turkey contributing here. Ultimately, though, Austria could cover the over 2.5 goals line on their own, knowing the way in which the Turkey team can blow up at times. Defensively, they are massively suspect, but they've got really sort of key individuals and forward areas who can change a game in a moment, as we've already seen as well. So I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's easily, for me, the standout tie of the last 16. I think both sides can contribute to an entertaining match. So I've got over 2.5 goals at 192.
Okay, yeah. My thanks to Mark, Adrian, and Miguel. Mark and Adrian will be joining me for the quarterfinal preview on Monday. Miguel will be back for the final. Miguel, those 8 round of 16 ties, do you know what 4 you're going to?
I'm going to 3, actually.
3.
So I'm doing Germany Saturday. I'm actually still waiting to hear an accreditation. There's been issues with some UEFA logistics, so hopefully it comes true.
Really?
Then England on Sunday, obviously, and then France Monday. Some of this actually ends up being dictated by the logistics, because we've got a base in the Roar, and 40% of the tournaments in the Roar, because there's so many games here for four of the venues, which actually is it becomes even more in the knockout stages. And then after that, if England get through, which, as we've been speaking about, we just about expect them to.
Yeah,
I'm off up to their base then, for 3 days before what could be, another similar quarterfinal match.
Yeah, exciting times. Yeah, go on, Adrian. Yeah.
No, I'm just going to say we won't be back on Monday, will we? Because the quarterfinals, we won't know the quarterfinals.
That's very true. Yeah, I've got my day wrong. Yeah, spot on.
I just didn't
Wednesday or
want to confuse
Thursday.
the listeners there. So
yeah, jeez, that's an edit now. Trying to edit all that in, but yeah, we'll be back Wednesday/Thursday when I speak to Mark and Adrian and finalize that. But my thanks to the guys. Really enjoyed that fun hour. Insights.matchfoot.com. Full recap, and hit that like button. Subscribe. Completely free to our YouTube channel, and do check out the Matchup Betting Exchange. If you are having a bet on Matchup Betting Exchange, enjoy it. Make sure it enhances the viewing while you're watching the game, but please do so responsibly. We'll chat to you next week. Bye bye.
Cheers.